Hey, look, I forgot to tell you, I apologize. At the beginning of the presentation, I apologize. At the end of this presentation is my name and contact email information. Send me an email, I'll send you the whole program. All right? I apologize, I should have said that right out the gate. But if you shoot me an email, I'll send you this whole thing. All right? Put your name on it, scratch my name out, put your name on it, take all the credit. All right? Seriously, take all the credit. You know why? Because if it helps firefighters go home alive, that's all that matters. Who I am and where I'm from don't matter at all. Not a bit. What matters is what you do with this information. So when we're done, if you want this PowerPoint presentation, you just shoot me an email, I'll give you the whole thing. Use it for the betterment of the fire service. When do we stop talking about bringing firefighters home alive? Never. Never. Never, never, never quit. Never. There is never a point at which we stop talking about bringing firefighters home alive. Think about this. In your own station or in your own department, if you were going to suffer an LODD today, what would be the most likely cause? Think about that. And it could be, in law enforcement, think about that. Most dangerous thing statistically I think you go to are domestic violence incidents. Right? I think, statistically, I think that's the number, right? Absolutely. Leading cause of death, right? And if this was, right now the law enforcement guys are loving this program because they're like, look at those dumbass firemen, all right? So right now, they're feeling pretty good. Of course, how many videos, do we have? How many training programs do you go to when you're in police academy? How many videos do they show of incidents that go bad? Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Make no mistake about it. And it's the same exact issues. It is the same exact issues. So if you were going to suffer an LODD today, what would be the most likely cause? Motor vehicle collision, struck out on the highway. How many of you go out on I-81 where everybody is really mindful of the emergency services personnel? Right? They slow down. They wave at you with all their fingers, right? They tell you how great you are, right? Absolutely not, right? Think about that. And then the question that you really need to ask yourself is, what are you doing about it? Because everything else is just BS. I'm not kidding. Alan Brunacini said it better than anybody else. Be competent, survive, and be nice. Those three things. Everything else is just window dressing. The question then you ask yourself is, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about reducing the likelihood of suffering an LODD? How many times have you allowed one of your ambulances to go out on the highway? And this happens all the time. We had to make this change in Loudoun County when we got there. The question was, if a person calls 911 on I-81 and says they're having a stroke, and you key in the stroke protocol, right? What are we going to send? Right? Ambulance. Why? Because we send an ambulance to a stroke victim at a private residence. A person's having a stroke. Do we make a modifying characteristic based on where the incident occurs? So then what happens? We send the ambulance by itself out onto I-81. They pull up, and as they're getting the stretcher out of the back of the ambulance, a car is going to do what? It's going to crash directly into the back of the ambulance and slice the paramedic in half. Why? Because civilians' eyes are drawn towards red lights. Interestingly enough, if you read the conspiguity study that came out of the NFA, conspiguity study, it says that all lights to the rear of emergency vehicles should actually be what? Amber. Why?
Not really attract attention.
Because what are we taught? Amber means what? Slow down. That's exactly right. And most of the time, amber lights are associated with, right? Say it again. Tow trucks, right? And so what do we think in our head? Automatically, we need to do what? Move away from it. Slow down and move away from it. But red lights do what? Draw our attention. Right? So this, and your vehicle goes where your eyes go. So think about how to engineer risk out of the job that we do. The easiest thing to do is ensure that we send a great big giant honking fire engine with them, or a ladder truck, whatever, and block for the ambulance. I cannot tell you, Toby and I were driving home yesterday, right? We stopped, we came upon a motor vehicle collision. Toby wanted to stop and do EMS. I made him stop, right? He wanted to jump out of his car and show everyone his EMT card. I'm not kidding.
This from the man going, you're going to make me do paramedic shit.
Right, that's exactly right. You know how Toby doesn't have much close tie to reality, right? So just ignore, right? So, all right. So, right? So what do? We pull up, right? We pull up, we're driving by, and what do we see? The fire engine led the ambulance to the scene of the call. So when they got to the scene, how did they park? Same exact way, because that's how they arrived. And again, anybody on those crews for 1 second not want to go home alive? Of course not. This is where company officers need to be the designated adult. This is where company officers make the difference. It's a small thing. Engine 1 to ambulance 1, pull in front. We'll block for you. How many times do you see crews, ambulances going out by themselves, and the engine company, and then they get there and they need help, and the engine company is like, oh my God, I can't believe we got to go help those guys again. Teaching risk assessment. Teaching risk assessment. What did Chief Bernasini teach us? Three sentences, right? Do what? Risk a lot to get a lot, save lives, right? Risk a little to save a little, and what?
Risk nothing to save.
Risk nothing to save nothing. That's exactly right. Now, if I showed you a video right now, who in this room thinks all of us would agree about what risk profile we should be following? Anybody? All of us have a different vision of what risk tolerance means. And again, that goes all the way back to the beginning of what we talked about. You've got to be smarter than the enemy that you face. You've got to know the enemy and be smarter than the enemy. But young firefighters want to earn the right to call themselves firefighters, and they want to earn the right to be part of the crew. And they believe that the only way to do that is to demonstrate their willingness to risk their life to be called a salty firefighter. And they are always automatically operating in an offensive mode. Always. From the time the tones go off, they are operating in an offensive mode. 5-year-olds, teenagers, and firefighters. They are identical. 5-year-olds, teenagers, and firefighters are absolutely identical groups of people. Anybody in here who has kids knows what I'm talking about. 5-year-olds, teenagers, and firefighters. They believe that they are absolutely positively invincible. Right? They have an unrealistic perception of their own immortality, and they believe that the laws of physics do not apply to them. Make no mistake about it. 5-year-olds, teenagers, and firefighters are identical. And this is where company officers and chief officers need to act like the designated adults that they are. And if you're not prepared to do that, you need to give your helmet to somebody else. Human behavior. It is said that Vince Lombardi used to say, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. and it is ascribed that the only thing that Vince Lombardi would accept was perfection. When in reality, what did Vince Lombardi know? We are not machines. Vince Lombardi knew that we are human beings, and as human beings, we will make mistakes. We will make mistakes. But in seeking perfection, we know that we will achieve excellence. But when your standard is excellence, when you say, we will strive for excellence, what in reality are you going to get? Mediocre. And if you say, you know what, 70%, what do they call the guy that finished last in medical school? Doctor. Yeah, anybody want that doctor working on them? Right? Raise your hand. I finished dead last in medical school. I'm your surgeon. Right? I'm here to help. Who do you want? You want world class. You want the very best. What do our citizens want? The very best. They don't care whether you're paid or volunteer. They don't care whether you have a mortgage. They don't care what is going on in your life. All they know is you signed up to provide service because you are wearing the uniform. And if you want to have the honor of wearing the uniform, then the cost of doing so means meeting or exceeding the expectations of the public. We are human beings. In striving for perfection, we will achieve excellence. But we are human beings, and we will make mistakes. The goal is to trap, mitigate, or avoid them. Trap a mistake before it turns into a series of seemingly disconnected events. Mitigate it. Minimize the amount of damage that it can do once it has occurred. Or avoid it. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. There are any number of people out in the world who argue that if you simply demand perfection, you will get perfection, and that you can practice enough to be absolutely, positively perfect. The most high precision flight team in the world is likely what? High precision flight team in the world. Blue Angels, right? Blue Angels. Do the Blue Angels ever have a perfect performance? Every single time they land, the very first thing they do is go into a room and they all sit around and talk about what? The mistakes they made. Really? Blue Angels? They go into a room and they're willing to look at each other in the eye and say, we made mistakes? And somehow we ourselves aren't willing to do that. There's a myth that exists on major events. Major harm-causing errors are the result of a single individual making one very wrong choice. That is a myth. In reality, major harm-causing errors usually involve multiple people committing seemingly minor or innocuous actions that all line up in just the wrong way to result in a serious event. All of these actions breach policy or procedure. Fail-safe mechanisms, overcoming safety features. Firefighters have consistently outperformed our ability to keep them safe. We are overachievers. Same exact thing happens in law enforcement. When you're approaching a vehicle, when you're on a vehicle stop and you're approaching a vehicle and the vehicle has a trunk, as you approach the vehicle, what are you supposed to do? Right? Put your hand on the trunk, right? So, for whatever reason, right, you run a call, you make 7 vehicle stops, and they're all hatchbacks, and there's nothing in the back, and then you get to that next one, and it's got a trunk, and what happens? You don't run your hand. And what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. And then it happens again and again and again and again, and nothing bad ever happens right up until it does. And this can take 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 years to develop. this normalization of deviance. The consequence of doing something unsafe may not result on you. It may result on the next generation of firefighters. How does that happen? LT, how could it possibly happen?
It becomes the norm.
Right? It becomes a norm. So the next you're teaching the next generation of firefighters, right? And they're doing what? Exactly what you did. And then it catches them. Remember what I said? Every second of every minute of every hour of every day you are being watched. And we're going to talk about who's most in control of you in just a second. There are a million examples. 750 Adams Place. I don't want to show the video right now, but look up 750 Adams Place. Write that down. Look up 750 Adams Place, and you can look at the normalization of deviance. It was a high-rise fire that occurred. They had been to the fire department had been to that building 29 times in the previous 6 months. And each time they had gone there 29 times for an automatic fire alarm, it had been what? False alarm. That's exactly right. The 30th time they went, it was an arson fire on the 9th floor. Because they had been there 29 previous times for an automatic fire alarm and it turned out to be nothing, the first arriving engine and truck company did exactly what they had done numerous times before. They got in the elevator, they pushed the number 9, and they went directly to the 9th floor. And when they opened the doors on the 9th floor, what happened? It was on fire. And then it was off to the races. How about this? Anybody know what happened on this date? What is it? Charleston. That's exactly right. I'm going to tell you again and again and again today. If you want to call yourself a firefighter, you have to know our history. It had been over 70 years since Charleston had an LODD. They were a Class 1 ISO department at this time. They were a Class 1 ISO department at this time. Read the report. Know the history. Know what happened. The thing that the American Fire Service latched onto with this picture was what? The red line, right? The booster line. That's what the American Fire Service latched onto. What in the hell are they doing taking a booster line into a fire like that? Are you kidding me? Who does that? Right? In that photo, the reason why that red line is there is because it was the last line available on the engine. You have to know the story. You have to know the story. A series of seemingly disconnected events that all lined up in just the wrong way. How long had they been operating in this way? Right? Forever. Forever. Had they ever gotten caught? No. December 3rd, 1999. What happened then? Worcester, Massachusetts. That's exactly right. What do? Guys in Worcester applied residential structure fire tactics to what? Commercial building fire. That's exactly right. How many times do we pull an 1 3/4 hose line at a commercial building fire? Right? Why? Why do we do that?
It's what you do on all your fires.
It's what we do on all our fires. That's exactly right. You want to know the most criminal secret about December 3rd, 1999? Ready? It was a sprinklered building. The owner had requested permission from, say it with me,
Fire marshal.
The fire marshal to do what?
Take it out.
Turn the water off in the building. Why?
Too much money.
Building was vacant. The only way to keep the sprinkler system in service was to keep the building heated, right? And he wanted to be able to not have to pay the heating bill. So he went to the fire marshal and said, hey, can I turn the, can we turn the building secured, no one's going to get in, can we turn the water off? Okay. Sprinklered building. Series of seemingly disconnected events all line up in just the wrong way. When we talk about root causes, one of the big things that we tend to do in the fire service is in our rush to solve the problem, in our rush to bury our own actions, in our rush to get past the pain of what we have done, either through omission or commission, is we do an investigation and we look right here. What were the unsafe acts that our personnel engaged in or that occurred on the emergency incident scene that resulted in this firefighter fatality? When in reality, all that we are doing is closing one hole. One. Where we need to be looking is right back here at the beginning. What organizationally are we doing? How are we operating? And this is a hard thing to do, because if you've never had an LODD in your department, what's the perception?
We're doing everything.
We must be doing absolutely everything right. That's exactly right. We got to be. We are on it. We are an ISO Class 1 department. We are the big dog in the plantation region of coastal South Carolina. Everybody else does things like us. We are the big department. When you put personal escape systems on every single firefighter, where in this are we solving a problem? Right? Are we prepared to have the hard conversations about the organizational influences? Are we prepared to have the hard conversations about when we are or are not going to initiate an attack? Under what circumstances we're going to do that? What are the rules of engagement going to be? And here's the part that kills me as much as anything, right here. Unsafe supervision. Unsafe supervision. Company officers not acting like designated adults. And then chief officers not holding their company officers accountable. Read the Fresno report. Read the Fresno report. Fresno report talks extensively about the fact that battalion chiefs routinely did not take command at incidents because they did not want to step on their company officers' toes. Routinely did not take command because they didn't want to hurt their company officers' feelings. Are you kidding me? Unsafe supervision. How many times have you allowed a piece of apparatus to back up without a spotter? Anybody ever heard of Bradley Harper? Bradley Harper. Anybody? Phoenix firefighter. Young kid, smart kid, riding an ambulance. Right? A couple engines in an ambulance get dispatched to a brush fire in a residential community. They get on location, ambulance is parked out of the way because that's what they always do. They park, they get out of the way, they're off to the side. but they're cross-trained, dual-role firefighter paramedics. Have you heard that? Right? So they're parked off to the side. Engine company goes down the same alleyway, gets on location, realizes they need to relocate and go around to the front. Right? So the ambulance stops, and the guys on the rescue are going to bail off the rescue and help the engine company. So what do? They get out, and they start doing what? Right? Where's your turnout gear?
Back of the ambulance.
All right? Back of the ambulance. A lot of times people put it in the side compartment. Right? Side compartment. Okay. So you get out. You're Bradley Harper. You get out. You're putting on your turnout gear. You're standing at the compartment. You're putting your turnout gear on. Right? You're focused on getting dressed. You hear a backup alarm. Are you paying attention to the backup alarm? No. Why? None of us pay attention to the backup alarm. None of us pay attention to the backup alarm. So you're getting dressed. The engine officer looks at the engineer and says, "Hey, you want me to spot you?" "No, I'm good. I got it. I'm good." Engine officer says, "Okay." The firefighters in the back say to the engineer, "Hey, you want us to get out and spot you?" "Nope, I got it." They back up. Bradley's putting on his turnout gear. They drove Bradley into the compartment. They drove him so far into the compartment that they could not extricate him. They crushed him. One of our own. On what? What was it called again?
Brush fire.
Yeah, brush fire. When we talk about unsafe supervision, what I'm saying to you is that the next time you decide whether or not to get out of the rig and spot somebody when they're backing up, you remember Bradley Harper. Not because some rule said so, not because a policy said so, not because the fire chief's going to bust you in the butt for it, for no other reason than because you love your brother so much that you are willing to do whatever it takes to bring them home alive. When we talk about building a culture of safe extinguishment, what we're really talking about is the middle, the balance. When lives hang in the balance, do we want our firefighters to be incredibly aggressive? When lives hang in the balance, absolutely. First arriving engine company in Prince George's County just a few nights ago gets on location, 5-person engine company that night, combination of career and volunteer personnel. And because they had that many personnel, they were able to save 3 young children trapped on the second floor of a working fire. Firefighter stretches a line to the first floor, rest of the crew goes upstairs, rescues the 3 kids, brings them out, not breathing, performs CPR and rescue breathing, kids survive. Do we want firefighters to be aggressive in those circumstances? Absolutely. But when you are going into battle, when you are going into combat like that, every square inch of PPE, every square inch, every policy and procedure, every communication, every single thing that needs to be done. And who plays a role in that? Everybody plays a role in that. Absolutely, positively, everybody. Policies and procedures alone are nearly meaningless. Words on pages. Did Phoenix Fire Department have a policy about backing when they killed Bradley Harper? They absolutely positively did. They absolutely positively did. The way that you build a culture of safe extinguishment, the way that you combat normalization of deviance is a relentless pursuit of compliance. A relentless, never-ending pursuit of doing the right thing. Your policies and procedures need to be relevant and functional. And it requires direct engagement. It requires direct engagement. The question is not, we can't afford to do something. The question is, can we afford a line of duty death? And if the answer to that question is no, then it drives all other decisions. It drives all other decisions. The smaller you are, the easier this is. If you're a department of 2 stations and 30 people, how many of those people do you know? Every single one of them. Not only do you know them, but what do you know? Their families. You know their kids. You know their mom and dad. You know their extended family. You know where they live. You know everything about them. When you are an aircraft carrier-sized organization, it is harder to remain directly connected. But there are ways to do it. At the end of the day, accountability and a willingness to demand compliance with the rules is what will keep firefighters alive. Not wishful thinking. Accountability and a willingness to demand compliance. How many times when you're the incident commander, do you have crews come up to you and say, "Hey Chief, how's it going? What's going on?" At the command post. And every single day, they're standing close to you. They really don't like you that much, just so you know. I don't want to hurt your feelings, okay? They don't like you that much. What do they want?
Attention.
They want to be in the game, right? They want to be in the fire, so they figure if they stand close to you, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either the incident commander is going to get so annoyed that you're there poking them in the eye that they're going to say, "Get the hell out of my sight, go to the fire." "Okay, Chief," right? Or the perception is, "Oh man, I really need help. Good thing you guys are here." Bam. But every time you as the incident commander allow yourself to become distracted, what aren't you doing? Being the incident commander. When we talk about building a culture of safe extinguishment, who does it start with? Us. Me. Starts with the individual. Who are you most able to impact? Yourself. Always. Most able to impact yourself. Never allow the indifference of others to drive your personal commitment to your own survival. How you view and how you speak about your organization is how you view yourself. These are not separate, right? Anybody ever go to a national conference, right? We're all wearing our stuff, right? We all wear our labels. We're the biggest organized gang in America. Make no mistake about it, right? We are the biggest organized motorcycle gang in America. We have colors. We have territories that we protect fiercely, right? Fiercely protect our territories, and nobody screws with us. Do we screw with each other? Toby, stop hurting my feelings. Go away. Stop hurting my feelings, right? Yeah.
If you had a feeling.
That's right. I left it at home. Jeannie has it. All right? Do we mess with each other? Absolutely. Wait, yeah, these 2 guys right here, man, they were going at it a little while ago, right? But if somebody is messing with this guy, right? Yeah, absolutely. Every time. We're the biggest gang in America. Make no mistake about it. But go to a national conference. Go to a national conference sometime and get into a conversation with people you don't know. So you're at the bar, right? And of course the questions always come up. It's the same questions always, right? Paid or volunteer? If you're paid, what's your shift? What's your retirement? What are your benefits? Are you guys allowed to do swaps? Right? What's the apparatus? Right? All these things. Your volunteer organization, how do your chiefs get elected? How do your company officers get appointed? Boom, 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 boom. It's the same thing. So then you get into a situation where you start talking about all the problems in the fire service. Not that there are any. right? Not that there are any. And here's what ends up happening. Eventually, because we're all type A personalities, it gets into a little competition, right? A little competition, a little friendly competition. You think that's screwed up. But let me tell you. Let me tell you how screwed up we are, right? And then and of course, nobody can be outdone because we're firefighters. Cops are the same way. Make no mistake about it, they are, right? Attorneys, cops, everybody. Everybody's the same way. No different. So we're in this situation where we're all talking about how screwed up we are, and finally it gets to the point where it's like, no, we give, you're right, you're the most screwed up fire department in America. And you're like, no, wait a minute, somebody up me, somebody up me. No, we agree, you're it. Right? You're wearing your colors. So when you leave there, what's everybody that you were with that night think? Man, that fire department, we think we got problems? No, they're screwed up. Right? You leave having lost the competition. But no one separates you as an individual from the organization that you represent. Fundamentally, you got to know that you can never separate yourself from your organization. How you view your organization is how other people will view you. Now, is that to say that every fire department in America is perfect? No fire department is perfect. But if you fundamentally believe that your organization is a good organization and you've been part of it for a long time, and you're like, you know what? Look, we're not perfect. We got problems. But we got the best damn firefighters in the country. And that message resonates. That message resonates every single day. Because if you come to work and you sit at the kitchen table and you're drinking a cup of coffee and you're the company officer and your shoulders are slumped over like this and you're like sighing and you're holding your head, my big bald spot right there from rubbing it so much, right? And you're like, oh my God, I gotta be a fireman today. Really? What do the rookies think? God, this must be really bad. The captain's like miserable. This must be an awful place to work. And then the kids start having that attitude, and the old guys do what? Those kids today don't appreciate how good we had it. They're just a bunch of idiot kids. I can't believe they even hired them. You know where they got that bad attitude? Look in the mirror. Who in here wants 4-person staffing on their apparatus? Right? Absolutely, positively. Make no mistake about it. Who here in this room believes they actually have the ability to control that occurring in their lifetime? Look around the room. All right? Knowing that, you have a choice. You can continue to work by whatever mechanism you can to improve whatever staffing level you have and leave the organization better than you found it, or you can just expend all your energy being miserable about the fact that you're not going to get 4-person staffing. That's a choice. You get to control your component of the organization that is at your level. That is at your level. On any given day, when you are a company officer and you're riding the right front seat, you own that apparatus. If you're driving that apparatus, how much control do you have over that? 100%. 100%. Who is most in control of whether or not that apparatus moves with personnel not wearing their seatbelt? The driver. The apparatus operator. How many times have you seen firefighters standing up in the front seat of the officer's seat, going to a call, getting dressed? How many times have you done that? How many times have you seen the firefighter standing up in the back of the apparatus, getting dressed? Anybody know where the SCBA is in Phoenix? It's in the compartment. Why? Why is that?
Distraction.
So, right? So they what?
Distraction.
No distractions, right? Why? Very specific incident occurred.
So it doesn't get in the way of the seatbelt.
So it doesn't get in the way of their seatbelt, because one day, Bruno, right, is having a meeting with all of his company officers. Has this monthly meeting with them all the time, and he always encouraged them to be honest with him. So please tell me what's going on. I want to know what's happening. And as an afterthought, he says, hey, look, don't forget, guys, wear your seatbelts. Just a reminder, right? Chief. Yes, sir, my fine young captain. Chief, with all due respect, I know that you've been out of the field for a long time, and I understand that you don't necessarily realize what's happening, but I can't wear my seatbelt. Really? Tell me more about that. Well, Chief, you want me to be ready when we get to the scene. You want me to be prepared to provide service to the citizens. In order to do that at a structure fire, I have to put my SCBA on. In order for me to put my SCBA on, I have to take my seatbelt off. And that SCBA is critical to me being able to get off that apparatus and go to work. Chief Brunacini says, thank you very much. That's all he says. Thank you very much. He walks out. He walks out. He calls Hoot Gibson. Who's Hoot Gibson? Right? Chief of Maintenance for the apparatus. You know what he says? Within 30 days, I want all the SCBA out of the cabs. What? You know what the unintended consequence of that was? Unintended consequence. They got better fireground size-ups. They got better fireground decision-making. Why? How does that happen? Because when you get to the scene, instead of just engaging, right? Instead of just going, what are you doing?
Slowing down.
You're slowing down. You're actually looking at the building while you're putting your SCBA on, and you're making better decisions about where that first attack line goes. You're making better decisions about where you need to place resources. You get to control your component of the organization that is at your level. Do not, to the greatest extent possible, obsess over things that you cannot change. Define and communicate your core values. Define and communicate your core values. If you don't, they will be replaced by each individual's own. Can you define the core values for your organization? Do you know them? Do you know them by heart? They need to be simple. Core values. Loudoun County, it's TIPS. Teamwork, integrity, professionalism, service. We judge everything in our organization against those 4 core values. When a big personnel issue comes up to headquarters, we evaluate it based on those 4 things. Teamwork, integrity, professionalism, service. TIPS. Core values. Can you name them for your organization? Can your firefighters name them? Do you keep it in front of them every single day? Is it a part of the language that you speak about to your crews? Again, building a culture. Building a culture. The next thing, after we talk about leading ourselves, is leading others. The front end of that, the only way that individuals within your organization can possibly meet or exceed your expectations as a supervisor is if you define them. If you define your expectations. And these things can precede you everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, these things can precede you. If you are focused on ensuring that everybody on your crew wears their seatbelts, and you get detailed to another station, or you take overtime at another station, what do you think the crews are going to know about you before you ever show up? Better wear our seatbelts today. I don't know what we do other days, but on this day with this captain, we better wear our seatbelts. All right? Or this engineer, cranky old pump operators, that's what we used to call them when I got hired. They were cranky old pump operators. Guys that had come up through the Vietnam era and were in their 50s, who had been around, who had done that, who knew what it was all about, their reputations preceded them by 10 miles. And not only do you have to define your expectations, but you have to hold your people accountable to them. And again, you need to decide. Again, it's all about your actions. Leading cause of death among firefighters today is what? Cardiac events, right? Single biggest way, right? Top 3 things, top 3 ways to reduce your likelihood of having a heart attack. Don't use tobacco products. Number 1. Number 2, exercise. Now, there are some folks in here who have 0% body fat and are like lean and tight, right? And are world-class athletes. Then there's fat guys like me, all right? Move. Get up and just move. It doesn't have to be an hour of anaerobic pain, all right? Get up, take your engine company to the local high school and walk the damn track. Just walk. Do something. There will always be individuals on that continuum of physical fitness. But what do we say? Is it your words or your actions? Actions. Every time. Just walk. Decide for yourself what these are going to be. Decide what your expectations are going to be. Next thing you need to do, give your folks the resources they need to get the job done. Give your folks the resources they need to get the job done. If you have a firefighter in your company who has turnout gear that needs to be replaced, rather than just send the requisition up into the black hole of headquarters where it seems to disappear every single time, actually take the time, energy, or effort to engage personally to make that happen until it is fixed. Why is this person walking around? I mean, the battalion comes in, he's like, why is this person walking around? Well, I sent the requisition up 3 weeks ago. Did you follow up on it? No. Did you ask anybody what was going on? I sent the requisition up. I did what I was supposed to do. No, you checked a box. Give your people the resource they need to do their job. Next thing, get the hell out of their way. When you define expectations and you give your people the resources they need, get out of their way. Give them the chance to demonstrate that they have earned your trust and respect to do the job. But don't ever let go of the reins. Anybody here own horses? Anybody own a horse? Zaz, you're out on a trail ride near your home, right? You're out on a nice trail ride. You go up into the mountains. It's a beautiful day, and you're riding along, and you're getting close to home, and the horse maybe can see the barn, right? That's the exact moment when you want to let go of the reins and just sit back, right? Yet no, right? No, why? What's a horse going to do? Run for the barn. Are they going to notice the great big giant hole in the ground right in front of them? No. What are they focused on? The barn, because they want to eat. Don't cheat your belly, right? They want to eat. So they don't see the hole, right? And they fall in the hole, and they flip over, and they break their leg. Now you got to put the horse down. The same exact thing is true of your firefighters, because your firefighters are always engaged in that offensive strategic mode. So they're running for the front door of that house, and they want to go through that front door. They want to John Wayne that door, and they want to get in there and do it. So they get in there, except for the fact that what happens? The floor's gone. And their very first step inside that house puts them where? You don't let go of the reins. Seasoned firefighters know what? First of all, you don't John Wayne the door, okay? And the second thing is, maybe you want to check and see if there's a floor there before you go in. But if the sum total of your experience has been at the training academy, right? Every single floor in the burn building of the training academy is made of what? Concrete. Any of those floors collapse on anybody? Anybody in the room been here when the training academy floors collapsed on them and they've fallen into the pit? Hell no. None of that has happened. You don't let go of the reins. That is true figuratively and literally. 90% of our time is spent doing things other than fighting fire. The overwhelming majority of our time is spent dealing with people, which is something we're so good at. When one of our people is in crisis, it is critical to understand that you cannot leave them to their own devices. You do not let go of the reins. As a matter of fact, when they are in crisis, you pull them close. You pull them in close. When I had just a couple of years on the job in Anne Arundel County, I got to work one morning at 17 Engine, and about 5 minutes after 7, we got a phone call from the battalion chief, said, go to Station 40, which is right across the Severn River. So we go to Station 40, and we pull up on the front ramp, and we're transferred over there, and right away we're like, something's wrong. So at about 6:30 that morning, one of our pump operators was seen walking through the parking lot, and he passed the lieutenant who was coming on duty. And he was in his socks. And the lieutenant was like, hey. He was like, oh, hey, how you doing, LT? And the lieutenant really didn't think that much about it. He thought he must be going out to his car to get something, like, his shoes. Instead, that pump operator got in his car, and he drove to the top of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and he jumped. Everyone in his station knew that there was something going on. Everyone in his station knew that he was struggling with personal issues. But out of a desire to be respectful of his privacy, nobody took the time to tell him how much he meant to them and how critical it was for him to stick around. We missed an opportunity. That lieutenant could have reached out and saved his life. All of us have members in our departments who are struggling, and we're ignoring it. Don't ever let go of the reins. When your folks do a good job, when you've defined expectations, and you have provided them the resources they need to do their job, and you've gotten out of their way, and they've done exactly what you asked them to do, you know what you have an obligation to do, regardless of your rank?
Praise.
Thank you. Look them dead square in the eye, put your hand out, and say thank you. They don't want medals. They don't want publicly to be called out. More than anything else, they want to know that they have the approval of their boss. You look them in the eye, and they know because you say it. That's the least that you can do. All right, take 5 quick minutes.